Welcome to part 2 of the Four Corner States tour. In part 1 I flew from Australia into New Mexico, where I met up with Pete, my cousin. He'd organised a tour of Arizona and Utah with some friends. This is a visual recap of just a few of the many places we saw in Arizona. In this part 2 we head up north into Utah. We travelled past Mexican Hat and had a quick stop off at Gooseneck State Reserve. This is the meandering San Juan River, a tributary to Lake Powell, which we saw in the previous video. Pete and I then took Ruby on this rough road through the Valley of the Gods, a very picturesque valley. Afterwards we continued. We had to travel up this steep cliff, which looked quite impassable from a distance, but as you can see this road has been cut into the cliffside. This is called the Mookie Dug Way. As you can see, it's quite a view. I remember we passed by a guy stopped on the side of the road with a drone. He would have got some great shots. Unfortunately I didn't bring a drone on this trip. We continued up north to Natural Bridges National Monument, where we met up with Steve and set up camp. The following day we set off to check out a few of these natural bridges.
Oh, it sounds hollow.
It is.
It's hollowed out. Oh.
Yeah.
A little sketchy.
I forget the name of this particular bridge. I think there's 3 of them that we're going to see today. Looks like just like a sheltered area where people can, doesn't look like a permanent home. This bridge is called Si Papu, and it means place of emergence. So the trail goes further down there, but don't think we'll go down there. While overlooking Si Papu Bridge, a large flock of birds flew over. I think I remember Steve or Pete referring to them as swifts. Looking down into the canyon here, one can see a well-preserved ancestral Pueblo village, inhabited between 1050 and 1300 AD. This site indicates that the inhabitants had an agricultural way of life. This trail goes all the way down, but I think I'll just go stay here. So here we are, natural bridges in Utah. This one is the Owachomo Bridge. It's a Hopi word for rock mound. It takes its name from the rock outcrop on one side of the bridge. Here I am, directly underneath the bridge. We spent one more night at Natural Bridges, and from memory it wasn't a very good night for me. I struggled to get a good night's rest. On this day we travelled up to Monticello, I was feeling very weary from the camping and looking forward to spending some time in a comfortable Airbnb. And it was fortunate that we were staying there then, because I did come down with a flu and I was bedridden for a couple of days. From Monticello, Steve returned home while Pete and I continued on our journey up into the mountains, where we could see some of the fall colours appearing. And we could look out across the Canyonlands where we're heading next.
Dead Horse Point. That's our next destination off that way.
As you can hear, I'm breathing rather heavily, partially maybe because of the altitude, but also because I was still recovering from the flu. But fortunately I recovered fairly quickly. Here we stopped off at another newspaper rock archaeological site, petroglyphs that date back from prehistoric peoples right up till European settlers. Continuing on now into the Canyonlands National Park.
See the wooden shoe, the little gap?
Yeah. In the distance you can see sandstone spires, which are called the needles. These are the result of weathering and fracturing as the sandstone layer slid slowly over an underground layer of salt. Pete then drove us to Cave Springs Trail, where there was a historic cowboy campsite, and you can imagine this would be a welcome respite from the desert heat under these rocks.
Man, what a difference in the shade compared to the sun.
Here you can see the spring, which is, I guess, is where the name comes from for the trail, and what looks like petroglyphs on the side of the rock. Pete wisely stayed in the shade while I continued this short hike, and this ladder was baking in the sun and I nearly burnt my hand on it. These little rock piles are called cairns and they mark the trail so I don't get lost. Pete and I continued our journey through Utah, up past Moab and into Dead Horse Point State Park. We had to cart our camping gear just a short distance to our camping spot. After setting up camp, I noticed a hare munching on the grass there. And there was a beautiful sunset. The following day we took the track out to Dead Horse Point, and there were some overlooks looking out over the Colorado River. Spectacular views there. See a little van driving along that road. The origins of the name Dead Horse Point come from a rather cruel story where cowboys corralled feral horses out on this narrow strip of land surrounded by sheer cliffs and gated it at the narrow bottleneck. It's a Colorado River down there, and it's a long way down. Looking out in the distance are the Canyonlands from where we came, and you can also see some potash ponds here. The word potassium is derived from potash and is mainly used in fertilizer. Looking down from the information centre balcony, we can see little chipmunks playing around. They are smaller than squirrels and have stripes on their backs. On pretty much our last day of sightseeing in Utah, we packed up camp and headed to a place called Upheaval Dome. And this place is a bit of a mystery. They're not exactly sure how it formed. It could have been from a slow-moving salt dome or from a meteorite impact. Also in this area there were just some spectacular views looking out across the canyons. This road winding down into the canyon was once a much narrower track that ranchers drove their livestock on. The uranium boom of the 1950s led to an upgrade of the road, but these days the Schaefer Trail is enjoyed by visitors to the national park, exploring the backcountry. We continued our journey up into Utah towards Green River. News of a possible government shutdown filled the airwaves.
Kevin McCarthy has not, in fact, been working with Democrats up until this moment. This is the last.
After witnessing some of the grandeur of nature, it made the politics seem so petty. But then again, I don't live here and I can escape back to Australia as long as the airport stayed open, which they did, thankfully. After staying the night in a Green River motel, and the following morning we had a breakfast burrito, we decided to bring this leg of our adventure to a close and head back to New Mexico. At times this was a tiring journey, but looking back on it, I'm so glad Pete had organised this tour. But there's a lot more to see, so stay tuned for the next episodes where we go to New Mexico and Colorado. See you then.
Wow, garage hasn't changed. It used to be green. Well, that's the homestead. Oh, they built all this retaining. That was never there. The retaining wall, grass. My goodness.
Oh, yeah. Something that's not as whiter than my skin.